If you would leave a business partner for embezzling, why should someone stay with a spouse who's committing financial infidelity or abuse? If we would celebrate entrepreneurs who try over and over and over again because they want to really be successful, they want to make the business work, why would we stigmatize a person who does the same thing in marriage? They have more than one marriage. If you view cutting your losses in business as smart, but walking away from a soul-sucking marriage, that's wrong. What's that about? And if pivoting in business is honorable, isn't divorce sometimes the smartest pivot a person can make? Hello and welcome to the Joy Act. This is where I share information and have conversations that help you realize that there is joy beyond divorce. Why? Because divorce is not a destination. I'm Dr. Lisa Summerour, and I want to welcome you back to this episode. This is part 2 of my Why Kevin Leary is Wrong About Marriage as an Economic Union. The first episode I called Beyond the Balance Sheet. This one, I'm calling the real cost of staying. Now, in part 1, I talked about the double standard the way I see it. Kevin O'Leary seems to celebrate failed business ventures as being resilient, right? Yet when it comes to marriages, he says, if you're getting married for the third time, it's not them, it's you. There's something wrong with you. We also saw that business partnerships fail at the same, even higher rates than marriages. And often, interestingly enough, they fail for some of the same reasons. Dishonesty, lack of trust, misalignment with values. And so in this part 2, I wanted to go deeper into some of his main arguments that staying married is always smarter financially because divorce costs too much. What's the cost of staying in a bad marriage? What's the cost to your health, to your children's well-being, to your future? Spoiler alert. The data, well, I'll let you decide for yourself. So first, I can agree with him on this one. Yeah, divorces can be expensive, but staying can also cost dearly. So in business, when partners stay together, despite having fundamental problems, the company in itself often goes into decline. Employees can lose morale, clients lose trust, and eventually you're going to see this financially. Losses are going to exceed what leaving might have cost the company. Remember the 2 stories I shared in part 1 about the woman who had 2 really dishonest business partners? One of them eventually left after he had already stolen her content and her clients. The other one stayed until he took her staff and edged her out of the business completely by starting a new business without telling her. Now, imagine what it would have looked like if she had stayed in either one of those situations even longer. The losses she experienced would have been greater financially. And what about her mental health, her emotional stability? All of those things would have been damaged even more. So that stay for the money strategy would not have been protecting her. It would have been setting her up for even more damage. And marriages are no different. A 12-year Penn State study found that people who were in unhappy marriages, they have lower self-esteem, their health is worse, their life satisfaction overall is worse or less than people who are in happy marriages. So remaining in an unhappy marriage is often more detrimental to you than going through the divorce. People who never remarry actually report higher life satisfaction than those who stay in their unhappy marriages. What does that mean? Staying is not protecting you. It may be causing you harm. What I'm calling O'Leary's balance sheet logic, it collapses when we look at health data. So here's some stuff on what research has revealed. When it comes to cardiovascular health, men in unhappy marriages nearly double the stroke risk. And they have a 21% higher overall mortality risk over the period of 3 decades. Chronic marital stress can also weaken your immune system. How's that for something fun? Couples who are stuck in this negative communication pattern, they heal slower and they have higher inflammation. If you are in an unhappy marriage, guess what? You also have an increased risk of type 2 diabetes and obesity because of the prolonged stress hormones that are in your body. And here's one. How about your gut health? Yeah. Stress disrupts gut bacteria. It can lead to things like leaky gut, inflammation, and other disease risk. You know, you think about how impactful stress is on our bodies, our overall health, and our mental well-being, but marital unhappiness actually can speed up the decline, your cognitive decline. Your memory can get worse, your ability to make decisions can be impaired. All of this can happen because you are in a dysfunctional, unhappy marriage. There are also links to higher risk, this is not going to be a surprise to people, depression, higher risk, anxiety, self-esteem, down, okay? And here's one of my favorites because I'm a big proponent of getting a good night's sleep. It's one of the things I preach, I teach. I'm not always as good as I would like to be, but it's something that I'm really, really aware of. Chronic conflict reduces the quality of your sleep. And I don't think anybody is going to be surprised by that. I just don't know that we always factor all of these layered things in when we're thinking about what it means for somebody to stay in a dysfunctional relationship or an unhappy marriage. And some of these same things, you could have these same underlying issues because you're going into a job that's really stressful. But you can create a really vicious stress cycle by not getting enough really good quality sleep. The bottom line, yeah, divorce has financial costs and they can be ridiculous. And that is definitely something you want to take into consideration. But this needs to be looked at as a holistic approach to dealing with a very difficult situation or what could be a very difficult and trying situation. It is not just about the economics of it. It's all of those things that I've mentioned, you know, because staying also has health costs and they add up to years that you cannot get back. You're talking about higher medical bills, diminished quality of life overall. So, you know, O'Leary would have you just focusing on the dollars lost in a divorce, but you'd be ignoring the compounded debt of stress, sickness, and years of a diminished life. That's not strategy. That's short-sightedness as far as I'm concerned. Here's another one that comes up. Let's talk about the impact divorce can have on. Thanks for joining me for this episode. I've got an invitation for you. If you're the one everyone turns to because they are almost guaranteed a yes, this is for you. I can remember telling myself that I like being seen as capable and dependable. You know, the one who helps others get everything done. But secretly, I think we know when it's too much. We know when it's costing us our peace. And before you tell yourself it's because you don't want to disappoint anybody or seem unkind, I want to stop you right there because it's not that. It's because your boundaries need rebuilding. You're over-functioning, but feeling undervalued. In just an hour a day for 5 days, come learn how to start honoring yourself and rebuilding your confidence by saying yes only when you truly mean it. If you're ready to stop managing everyone else's comfort and start protecting your own without guilt, visit rebuildingbetterboundarieschallenge.com for more information. Because your peace is not up for negotiation. Well, not anymore. Here's another one that comes up. Let's talk about the impact divorce can have on children because a lot of parents justify staying in an unhealthy marriage because they say they're doing it for the kids. But research shows something else. You know, kids who have been living in what I'm going to call high conflict homes, they suffer more. Things like struggles with mental health, again, the depression, the anxiety, and then we're back to one of my favorites again, the disruption in their sleep quality. They also have issues with social and having just healthy relationships. They have difficulties often later in life as a result of living in this high conflict home. You know, children don't just hear what you're saying, they actually observe and absorb what you're modeling. So if they see coldness, constant conflict, or they hear the silence, if that's what they learn things like love equals conflict, or marriage means you're going to be unhappy, or money is more important than an individual's well-being. I'll tell you a personal story. I was sitting in therapy with one of my exes, and he said to me and the therapist that he had never seen his mom and dad argue. And I remember catching this look on the therapist's face, because, for the most part, therapists want to be impartial, but they're human. And she kind of tilted her head a little bit, and she took a beat and she asked a couple more questions. And when she got the responses, she said, okay, so that means that you never saw them have an argument. That's what you're saying. She said, but that also means you never saw them resolve one either. That insight really landed for me. I mean, it has stayed with me from a positive note ever since. And it made me think of even my parents growing up. I definitely saw and heard them argue, and I heard them stop speaking, right? And I heard some of the mumbling and, oh, your mom's difficult, or, oh, sometimes he drives me nuts. But I also got to see them resolve those conflicts. I got to see them make up. I got to hear some apologies. So you need to understand that children don't just need to see conflicts being avoided. There's some benefit in that too. But they also need to see them get resolved in healthy ways. Otherwise, they grow up with no roadmap for what repairing things looks like. And it's not only at home. One of my former business partnerships, my colleagues watched me butt heads with the owner of the company. He would retort with literally insults and verbal attacks and gaslighting. And I promise you, nobody on the team enjoyed witnessing this. I don't think anybody got any pleasure out of seeing this happen. And while a few of them would actually check on me privately afterwards, the truth is the damage had already been done in public. And so it's no different than what children see at home. This is very similar. Conflict without healthy resolution erodes that feeling of safety, of trust, and of confidence. And the research shows this. Children do better with two separated parents than they do with two miserable parents trying to parent together. So choosing yourself isn't selfish. It's teaching your children what self-respect looks like. Honestly, it's teaching your children what respecting the other person looks like, even when you don't agree and you can't get along. Because I think agreeing to separate for the benefit of everybody is a sign of mutual respect. And so to relegate marriage to being solely about being this economic union, it misses the mark entirely as far as I'm concerned, because what children witness and absorb has a far greater impact on them than the bottom line or the balance sheet or whatever. So here's something fun for you. And this is because a couple of weeks ago, I rewatched the film Girls Trip. So even culture can show O'Leary that he's missing some stuff. So in the film Girls Trip, Regina Hall plays a character, Ryan Pierce. Ryan is a successful lifestyle guru and author, and she is faced with a major decision that could significantly improve her and her husband's public profiles and their pockets. Now she has to decide between staying silent and protecting the wealth, or telling the truth by risking everything. So by O'Leary's logic, silence would be Ryan's smartest move. Save the marriage and keep all the money. Ryan chooses honesty, integrity, and self-respect. Why? Because some things really do matter more than money, and sometimes doing the right thing, it pays off in ways that you could not imagine, that you're not going to see on a spreadsheet. Protecting self is often what matters, and I really believe this is very often where we fall off the rails, because we don't protect self. Okay? But listen, based on what O'Leary said, he would have told Tina Turner, Mary J. Blige, Halle Berry, Kelly Clarkson, Sheila Johnson, and Gayle King to stay. How about my mom, my aunts, me? We should have all stayed? What about you? You see, the price tag for maintaining that economy, that dysfunctional marriage economy, For me, that was way too high. You can always make more money. And many of the women that I listed, they did. But you can't buy back your freedom. You can't buy back your health. And even for the women who didn't end up becoming wealthy or millionaires or wildly successful, I can tell you from talking to them that their peace of mind was the most important thing. Their safety and their peace of mind. So this is where I want to pretend that I have Kevin O'Leary here so I can ask him these questions. And if, you can ponder these yourself, or maybe this will just spark some light bulbs will go off for some other folks listening who might have agreed with him. If you would leave a business partner for embezzling, why should someone stay with a spouse who's committing financial infidelity or abuse? If we would celebrate entrepreneurs who try over and over and over again because they want to really be successful, they want to make the business work, why would we stigmatize a person who does the same thing in marriage? They have more than one marriage. If you view cutting your losses in business as smart, but walking away from a soul-sucking marriage, that's wrong. What's that about? And if pivoting in business is honorable, isn't divorce sometimes the smartest pivot a person can make? And tell me this, what's the ROI on doubled stroke risk, therapy for traumatized kids, and years of lost productivity at home and at work? And look, I can't deny that there aren't some important economic components to many marriages. I know of people who the emotional aspects of the relationship is over, but they can't afford to physically separate. They have to stay in the same home. They're, sharing finances, or because their finances are so commingled, or they're in such financial distress that they literally can't afford to separate, even though they don't want to be together anymore. Sometimes people don't want to risk losing that 2/3 of the wealth if they had it to lose. And that's maybe what O'Leary was talking about. But I believe most people would agree that marriage is so much more than an economic union. Think about it. What were the reasons you got married in the first place? It's the emotional intimacy and the support, sexual and physical connection, shared life experiences, your growth and the just mutual evolution of watching somebody that you love and care about grow and mature and change and evolve over the years. There's the companionship and the legacy that you end up building together. Having someone who witnesses your life and the story that you are building when a marriage is healthy, it enhances every single aspect of your life. I truly believe that. That's maybe why some of us were willing to do it more than once, going for that. At the same time, when it's an unhealthy relationship, it can erode everything. You see, staying doesn't automatically preserve anything. It could just be prolonging the damage. O'Leary is right about one thing. Divorce does have cost, but the data shows that the greater cost often lies in staying. And the truth is, staying in a failed partnership, whether it's business or marriage, compounds losses in health, productivity, your child's well-being, and it can take years off of your life. When entrepreneurs fail repeatedly, we call them resilient. But when people divorce more than once, he is saying something is wrong with you. That double standard is what's driving me nuts, and that double standard is what has to go. But most know that marriage is more than a balance sheet. And choosing yourself is not stupidity, it's wisdom, it's courageous, it's survival. Now, if you're old enough, you'll remember a song that went, "It's cheaper to keep her." And that's kind of what O'Leary's comments made me think about. It's cheaper to keep her. But then I started thinking, it's really more about Whitney Houston's song, "Exhale." And in that song, she says, there comes a point when we exhale. So the real question might not be, can you afford the divorce? Are you going to lose 2/3 of your income? Where are you going to be financially when this is all over? The more important question might be for many people is, what will it cost me if I stay? can I afford that? What's that going to cost me? Can I afford that? I'm Dr. Lisa Summerour. Thanks for being with me. If you missed part 1, go back and check it out and share this with somebody if you think they are going to benefit from hearing this, if you got something from this. And remember, divorce is not a destination. It just might be the doorway to the life that you deserve. So my wish for you is that this next act is the joy act. I'll see you next week.